What's going on, folks? Ted from Nerd Immersion here, and we're actually streaming this over live on Twitch. I've been doing a handful of different kind of D&D work streams over there, but in that Twitch chat, I was let know that that's a weird way to say it, that a survey came out actually apparently earlier today that I just totally missed, which was the survey results for the most recent Player's Handbook Unearthed Arcana. It's only a 12-minute long video, so we're just going to watch that video in its entirety. So fear not, those of you that like to watch me at 2 times speed, you're not going to be hearing Jeremy Crawford at 4 times speed. So we'll see what it's about. We'll see. Maybe this will give us some insight into more Unearthed Arcana, which if this survey result video is out, potentially Unearthed Arcana could be coming soon, maybe this week, maybe next week. Let's go ahead and pull this up and we'll watch it together. Let me just get this to full screen. Here we go.
Hello everyone, today we are talking about Unearthed Arcana, and we got some very exciting survey results, and we have a bunch of other updates, but this was a very well scored survey.
Yes, it was wonderful to enter into the new year and see the survey report that our
and still have a job.
Staff members went through carefully, looked at the feedback, and discovered that people really loved overall what we offered in Unearthed Arcana number 8 for the Player's Handbook. That UA was focused on the Druid, the Monk, and the Barbarian, and all 3 of the classes, the features that we presented scored really well. Starting with the Druid, the features that we presented there, which were a revised wild shape and revised features for Circle of the Moon, those all scored in the 70s and above.
That was,
and
I didn't think Druid needed as much help as they were giving it. They made a lot of adjustments. They obviously went hard the other way, pissed a lot of people off with early Unearthed Arcana. I think where they landed in this newest version, I mean, they wanted to update and change things, so like you can't, not many classes got just left alone. So what we're seeing here, I think is about the best as we could get given the circumstances. So I'm on board.
And for people who haven't been with us throughout this journey, always good for you to know that our goal is for things to score a 70% satisfaction score or higher. And we view that as a floor. And once something has sort of landed on the 70% satisfaction floor, we then in our internal development and playtesting look at what satisfied people who took this survey and how can we increase the volume. So I bring that up to say the Unearthed Arcana is never the end of our work. It's an important information point that's a part of our game development work. And we can look at it and see, all right, people really like this, and how can we give them more of that? So it was really good news for us that the Circle of the Moon's features and Wild Shape now are in the satisfied territory. Now, when we get to the features that we offered in the Barbarian and Monk, there we are in the super satisfied territory. So the Barbarian features that we presented.
Super satisfied? Barbarian? Yes. Monk? Maybe not. Now, I'm curious if they're going to clear up some of the issues that many of you had with the Barbarian, because I actually spoke to Jeremy about some of those in person at PAX Unplugged and got some clarification. I wonder if he's going to clarify it here.
Which focused on introducing the Brutal Strike mechanic, a new active feature that we offered for the Barbarian. There we're looking at satisfaction scores in the 80s. We also had a revised version of the Path of the World Tree, also scored in the 80s. So as soon as you're in the 80s, you are looking at really high satisfaction. But we then went even higher in the Monk. And the monk might finish out this Player's Handbook Unearthed Arcana series positioned right now, because it was low scored in the past, and now the class is in the 80s. Well, right here at the end of the race of most improved, the monk zoomed past the ranger.
Appropriate.
Exactly. The monk spent some of their now more plentiful discipline points to race past the ranger. And most of the features that we offered in that revised version of the monk were in the 90s in terms of percentage.
Again.
Now, it is rare for us in the UA process, and this is true for the UA process going back the past decade. It is rare for things to make it into the 90s. One of the reasons why it's difficult for things to get into the 90s is the D&D audience is so large and has such varied tastes. So, there might be something that one person dearly loves in a subclass or a feat or a spell or another feature of the game that we present that they really love, but then there might be somebody else where it's just not their thing.
Yeah.
So it's really unusual, given the size and diversity of our audience, for something to generate so much unified satisfaction for it to start approaching 100% satisfaction.
I gotta give them credit for that, because that is true, right? As a content creator on the internet, you cannot please everyone. It's impossible. There are a lot of people that are very well liked by a large majority of people, and I'd say most YouTubers and other content creators would be more than happy to say that they have a 70% satisfaction rate with whatever their viewership is. So I get that like 70% is WotC's mark to say like, okay, like we've hit enough people if something's in the 70% range. So again, seeing something potentially in the 90% range is a good thing, and I applaud that. Again, is it only 90% because it's compared to what the first run was? I don't know. And I still do not, the Ranger still doesn't have identity. I brought this up to people. I feel like it just play a fighter with some, with a nature-based background or a rogue. Like, even an Oath of the Ancients Paladin feels more rangery and has like a unique identity to it compared to just the Ranger. It just doesn't, I don't know, maybe it's just me, but it just doesn't hit the mark. And listen, I've been playing Baldur's Gate 3 Honor Mode solo for a little while here. And yeah, one of the people in my party is a Ranger. And I did a Ranger Rogue because Gloomstalker Ranger in the terms of the video game is just like really good. But all I'm basically using it for is the fact that I get an extra attack on the first turn. That's not like uniquely Ranger-ish, It's just like... It's a fundamental better DPS mechanic for a video game, but it really could have just been a fighter and it really wouldn't have made a difference at the end. But either way.
And we actually saw that with several of the features in this revised monk. Now, there's more, because that Unearthed Arcana also presented revised versions of several of the game's core healing spells, Cure Wounds, Healing Word, and others. Those all scored in the 80s.
That's not surprising.
And we also presented some new takes on some of the conjuration spells from the 2014 Player's Handbook. We knew that they were experimental. The 2014 versions of those spells allowed you to summon one or more creatures within a certain CR range. Mm-hmm. And people who've played with those spells know that they can be quite fun, but they can also be quite disruptive.
Right.
And so we experimented with some totally new takes on those spells, versions of them that really moved away from summoning a stat block and instead summoning a special effect that's themed to Fae.
It was basically like you just wanted to keep the spells. And it might purely be just because of the fact that they're trying to do this 2014 to 2024 situation. So, like, you know, you can't change the names of these spells from 2014 because the game's supposed to be backwards compatible. But really, you should just strike those, in my opinion, strike those spells from the record. The versions you included in Tasha's Cauldron are basically what you wanted them to be. So instead, you use the names of spells from 2014 to just give them random other effects. And some of those spells, and I said it when I initially reviewed that when it first came out, some of those spells were garbage, but some of those spells were actually pretty good, but they weren't good as the replacement for what they were, like Conjure Animals. Like some of them, you just change the name. Like if you'd made that, called it Conjure Swarm, for example, that was like a cool new spell you just made up, as opposed to trying to retrofit a new effect into an existing name. But
or animals or elementals or one of the other kinds of things that you could conjure with them. We did that because in the 2024 Player's Handbook, we're going to be including the summoning spells that we originally introduced in Tasha's Cauldron of Everything, and those spells summon a creature with a stat block. And so since we were going to have these spells coexisting, we wanted to take those troublesome ones from 2014 and give them a new role in the game. Well, the good news is it was thumbs up across the board for those revised conjuration spells. They all scored in the high 70s or in the 80s.
That's
in terms
insane
of
to me.
This UA is the last UA for the Player's Handbook coming out later this year. And so it really ended this UA series on a high note. And now we are deep, and have been for months, deep in our internal development, not only developing the elements that have appeared in the UA series, but also the elements that haven't. There are going to be some brand new spells that people will see in the new Player's Handbook that will be surprises, as well as some other new features. Everything is getting very careful polish as we try to make this the best Player's Handbook the game has ever had. Now, I mentioned we're going to be working on this for a while.
Yeah.
And we did a preview of some parts of...
Okay, this is going to be interesting. Are we going to get a date? Or are we going to get a... That's actually 2025 now.
Of the Player's Handbook, as well as some art, back at PAX Unplugged. Well, I was informed that apparently when we were on stage, I guess a graphic appeared online that said that the core books were coming out like in May or something.
Yeah. Yes, it did.
For you and I.
It was a huge surprise to me as the person who is the lead designer of the Player's Handbook. And I just want to confirm with you, and as well as everyone watching this video, that is definitely not the release date. That was never the release date.
Yeah,
in fact, we will still be working on the books in May.
Yeah.
So just wanted to share.
What are the chances we get this book in 2024? Right? We're at the 50th anniversary of D&D is right now. Like that's happened. Like the posts have been happening. People are saying happy 50th D&D. We did. I was in the panel, live tweeting the panel from PAX Unplugged, telling everybody what was going on, and I was blown away that when I walked out of that panel and checked social media, that it said May 21st for the core rulebooks, which somebody at WotC posted that, which means that that graphic existed at some point. Here's the thing. Maybe they're going to go into it, but at the Content Creator Summit in April of last year, they told us it wasn't going to be a triple release. Like, we weren't going to get the Player's Handbook DMG Monster Manual in one go. They were going to stagger it like they did in 2014, where you got the PHB first, then the Monster Manual, then the Dungeon Master's Guide. Not saying that it's going to be that order, but they did say they were going to stagger it. I don't know if that's still the case, but they apparently are still going to be working on the Player's Handbook in May. there are not many months left in the year, 7 months left to finalize your book and then get it to printers and then get it in people's hands. I see someone here in the Twitch chat is saying Christmas release. I don't doubt that. That is possible. December 31st is still 2024. So if they release it at the end of the year, that's still technically 2024. But it just seems unlikely. Maybe they can afford to just push printers to make it work. I don't know. Let's see what else they say.
Share that. Also saw that I guess some people thought that the image of the dwarf fighter was the cover of the player's handbook.
No.
We have not revealed the covers yet.
Yeah.
That's going to happen later this year. That cool image was an image, and I mentioned this at the panel.
It's the fighter.
Unplugged, is a cool image from the fighter section of the new player's handbook. And my goodness, is that book jam-packed with gorgeous art.
Yeah, because for each class, we have this amazing piece of art to kind of help art. Kind of cement and define, like, this is what a fighter is, this is a warlock. And then on top of that, we have subclasses that are getting their own individual art as well.
Exactly.
And the book is just brimming with art. Everywhere you go, there's art.
Yes.
It is lovely.
Yeah, every subclass gets a piece of art. You're going to see more equipment art than in the 2014 PH, more spell art.
Somebody asked at the panel at Gen Con about more equipment options, and it did seem like, based on the feedback that was given from Chris and Jeremy in that panel, that it was quite likely that we would be seeing more, the potential for additional either armor or weapons beyond what we saw in the player's handbook in 2014. More art, larger font. Yes, you're not wrong. That is definitely stuff that they've been saying. Somebody over here in the Twitch chat is saying potential Gen Con release. That would be interesting. And if they could, like, they could take over right? Gen Con. If you're like, get your 50th anniversary D&D books here at Gen Con at the Baldwin Games booth, blah, 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 blah. That's a big marketing push. That would be sound business practice. I would suggest they could do that if they could. Are they going to do it? Are they good with sound business practices? Not so much lately, so I guess we'll see.
All over, everywhere you look in this book, you're going to see beautiful new art.
But but this being the last Unearthed Arcana, isn't the player's handbook done?
No, far from it.
I know.
Yeah. And we are working on all three of the core books together.
Yeah.
So as we continue to refine elements of the player's handbook, we are also doing tons of internal playtesting on the revised monsters that will be in the monster manual, along with the new encounter building approach that we're dealing with. You and I have chatted in previous videos that we might send out that new encounter building in Unearthed Arcana. Right now, we're focused on playtesting that internally instead. And what we've discovered is just us iterating on it over and over and over again is bearing amazing fruit. And what I can report is that what people are going to see in the revised Dungeon Master's Guide is a much streamlined encounter building system.
Oh, nice.
Where you are able to just figure out what is essentially your...
So why can't we he said it. Why can't we just call it like he's called it the revised Dungeon Master's Guide. It's not like, why can't we just give it a name? Why do we have to tiptoe around this? It's still 5e, but it's not.
Your budget for monsters, if you're going for a certain difficulty, and you spend that budget. The end. And it's going to be that simple of a process.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah, so I'm looking forward to us sharing that with people later this year. And we are also continuing our work on the Dungeon Master's Guide. We, of course, have many magic items, making sure, we're going through them, making sure that the ones that work great from 2014 will continue to work great, and the ones that maybe need some attention and tweaks get that attention.
Okay.
So there's a lot going on, but it's exciting. And for us on our design team, a really wonderful way for us to be spending our time during the game's 50th anniversary. Because for us, one of the best ways for us to celebrate 50 years of our favorite game is to create new versions of the core books. Versions that we think will really honor the game, honor its legacy, give people exciting new options, and really be this monument to this glorious game that many of us have been playing for most of our lives. There are announcements and events that will be coming up over the course of the year, and I look forward to being able to not only help make some of them happen, but I'm looking forward to them as a D&D fan. D&D has been with me almost my entire life, and D&D and I are close in age to each other. And so really I have been walking hand in hand with this game since almost the beginning.
Jeremy, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
All right. So, what do we think? I think that was interesting. So I think the biggest takeaways, right? No more player's handbook, Unearthed Arcana, right? We're not getting any more Unearthed Arcana for the player's handbook for the 2024 rules revision. Will we be getting anything at all until these books come out? Because again, I hate to keep being like, well, back in the when the books first came out in 2014, there was no Unearthed Arcana. We didn't even know that was gonna be a thing, right? So back in the day, like, we were getting new books constantly. 3.5, 4th edition. Those of you who may remember or were actively playing in those times, you might remember. But we used to get books, like, I feel like I would go to, like, a local game store or a Barnes & Noble, and, like, every week there'd be, like, 1 or 2 new books out on the shelf. Books were coming out constantly. I'm not even talking about the transition from 3rd to 3.5, like, that shift, there were just, like, gotta remake a bunch of books, too. So books were coming out constantly, so that's how you got your new content in D&D, is you just go to the store and get a new book. But during I still feel like it's wild that people don't realize that we had modules to play before we had a Dungeon Master Guide. Like, you could have the player's handbook and ride a Horde of the Dragon Queen and not have the Dungeon Master Guide yet. Like, that didn't exist. We had to wait months. There was like a month gap between the Dungeon Master Guide and the Monster Manual, but we had pre-written campaigns to play. That had like online PDFs that you needed to know to go download to get like the content that you didn't have in the books you had. Dragon Magazine, Dungeon Magazine, both of those had ads for new books and things that were coming out. When 5th edition launched, I feel like, let me see if I can look up the first 5e Unearthed Arcana, because it was Eberron based. You used to be able to find it on the D&D website. But anyway, the reason I'm bringing this up is we had a time period where we didn't have any Unearthed Arcana, and I'm wondering, now they mentioned they might release the Encounter Builder rules, which would be cool to see. Here, let's go ahead. We're over on the D&D website here. So Wonders of the Multiverse was the last one, which was July 18th, 2022. This was the last one released on the official D&D website. So I think we can just sort this. Oh, alphabetical. All right, well, that's annoying. So we have to just scroll. Does it only go back? It only goes back to 2020? Are you serious? You can't go further back? What? What is did they get rid of all the old content? Because most of this Unearthed Arcana was like stuff that they were demoing. So this is part of like they were demoing all this stuff going into like Tasha's Cauldron timeframe. So if we were to take a look at this like subclasses part 1, some of these you'll notice did make it, like Path of the Beast Barbarian made it, Way of Mercy made it, Oath of the Watchers made it. They changed the name of the Noble Genie, but these were all like refined versions that like versions of these ended up in Tasha's Cauldron of Everything. Because like a couple of them, if people remember, I think Fighter, Ranger, Rogue had the one of these had the Brute Fighter, and that one didn't end up making it. And I think this was this feat revision. One of them, like, they really don't, I cannot believe, because we got to go way, way back. Yeah, it just caps out at 2020. That's, I wonder if there's a reason behind that. Huh. Oh, this is the Unity domain, Cleric. I think it ended up becoming the Peace domain. But wasn't that the Love domain originally? And then they had to scrub it because of the, like, it was out for like an hour and then they removed it because it wasn't, like, I forget the reasoning why. Yeah, you can't go, are you serious? This is, so it's gone. If you didn't save a copy of it somewhere, can we search Eberron? What? I search Ranger. Man, they're just gone. You can't even find them. Okay. There was like a year or so. And at that time, Unearthed Arcana was also very much shot in the dark stuff. Like, they weren't planning on doing Eberron at all. But they were like, hey, let's try to do Warforged and like Artificer, and it's a wizard subclass. And then they tried to come up with an idea of how to do a ranger that didn't have spell casting in the second one. They were like actual homebrew cool ideas before they ended up just becoming like future product playtests for like future books. But like I said, I think it was like a year and a half before we got one. And now I'm wondering if, like, we know we're not going to get... Are they going to start demoing us, like, giving us stuff before, like, whatever the next book is? Because that would be pretty interesting if we start seeing, like, new subclasses. I don't think we're going to see that, though, because they're going to want you to have the 2024 rulebooks in hand so that you can start, like, looking at what the future stuff's going to be. Like, obviously, you can pull old Unearthed Arcana, but it doesn't make sense right now, at least in my mind, to try to, like, get people to playtest future subclasses because they still don't have the current base class to get an idea of how it works. So we might see some... I don't think we're going to see anything with monsters at all. It seems like that's going to be the case. And I think we're going to see, like, maybe we'll get, like, a snippet of some new magic items or, like, here's the encounter rules. But we might be on a dry spell for Unearthed Arcana for quite a while. So, I don't know. Let me know your thoughts and opinions in the comments down below. See you all next time.